Joe. Is GLTV ready? Candidates ready? The press ready? Okay. Good evening, and welcome to the 2016 Candidates Forum for Berkeley Heights Township Council. Tonight's event is a co-sponsorship of the League of Women Voters and the Berkeley Heights Communications Committee. It is Thursday, October 13th, 2016, and we are at the Columbia Middle School cafeteria. My name is Nicholas Schiavo, and I am the chairman of the Township of Berkeley Heights Communications Committee. It is a pleasure for the committee to co-sponsor this forum with the League of Women Voters. It's a pleasure to be joined on this stage by tonight's moderator, who is Diane Gallo of the League of Women of the League, and Diane is a Summit resident. Also on the stage are the 5 candidates in alphabetical order and their party affiliation. Peter Bavoso, Republican. Manuel Kudo, Republican. Edmund Tom Majeski, Libertarian. Stephen Yellen, Democrat. And Jill Zacher, Democrat. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. If you want to correct it, please do. The 2 members of the press tap into is Bobby Peer, the editor, and Barbara Reibold, the reporter. Sitting in the front row is tonight's timekeeper, Pat Dolan. Can you please raise your hand? Of the League, whom is a New Providence resident. Tonight's forum is divided into 2 parts and will extend for 90 minutes. Part 1 will feature questions asked by the press. These topics, but not the questions, were previously discussed and agreed to by all candidates in 2 separate planning meetings that were recently held by all parties. In fact, tonight's entire protocol was discussed and agreed to by all parties during these 2 planning meetings. Part 2 will consist of questions asked by the audience members. In addition, tonight's event is being filmed by the Governor Livingston High School TV crew in the center, which is managed by Joseph Voorhees, who is a teacher of television production at Governor Livingston High School. The individuals behind the camera are truly our high school students. We thank them for their public service, and we thank Joe Voorhees for his leadership and his professionalism. Tonight's event will be shown starting early next week on Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Fios Channel 47. The dates and times are Tuesday at 7:30, Wednesday at 3 p.m., Friday at 7:30 p.m., and Saturday at 10 p.m. In addition, starting early next week, you can view this candidates forum way of the internet on demand at www.glhstv.com. That's the Governor Livingston High School TV website. And there is an on-demand tab in the menu bar. As you scroll through the on-demand section, you will see the link to the candidates forum. While part 1 is being administered, we ask the public to submit their questions in writing on the index cards for the part 2 segment of the debate, which will occur later in the evening. These cards are being distributed by the League, and I know there's a lot of people have submitted questions. You can submit questions throughout the whole night. Please state the question in a clear and concise manner, as Marlene had previously commented. The completed index cards will be collected by the league, I know there's a few league representatives walking around, and placed in this transparent globe right here. You can see the cards are in there. You're allowed to submit multiple cards throughout the night. The league and the communications committee have implemented various controls to ensure that all candidates and the public are properly heard tonight. Here are a few examples. The timekeeper and the moderator are League of Women Voters personnel, and they are not Berkeley Heights residents. I am a Berkeley Heights resident. As I previously stated, the candidates provided with the topics, but not the questions. At this point, the only two individuals in this room who have prepared and seen the questions are the two tap reporters at the end. The League of Women Voters, the Communications Committee, and the audience are hearing the questions at the same time that they are being asked of the candidates. Another example is for part 2, all public questions will be placed in this clear bowl, as I previously mentioned. Lastly, the event is being filmed by the Governor Livingston Media Department. The League and the Communications Committee may partner with them during the year for specific events, but the TV crew reports into the Governor Livingston High School. Probably the most important thing that I will mention tonight is that we ask all candidates to respect the protocol and that the audience holds their applause and other comments. Tonight, both the candidates and everyone in the auditorium will be given an opportunity to be heard at the appropriate time. A handful of volunteers made tonight possible, and the candidates have done much hard work. It is a professional event. Let's respect these points by following the guidelines. Lastly, before I turn it over to tonight's moderator, Diane Gallo, I ask that the candidates, the press, and the audience members turn off their cell phones. And now, I'll give everyone 15 seconds. I will now turn it over to tonight's moderator, Diane Gallo, who will start part 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. The candidates were given instructions, and I'm just going to repeat them before we start with the opening statements. These opening statements are 1.5 minutes each, and they are in a certain order that was chosen by lot. The candidates each picked a number, and that order is the order in which they will speak their opening statements. To be fair, the closing statements will be done in the opposite order. That being said, let's get started. By lot, the first person who drew number 1 was Mr. Kudo. So if you would like to begin.
Good evening, everyone. Hope it doesn't count in a minute and a half. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Communication Committee for hosting tonight's debate, and everyone for being here. I'm Manuel Kudo, along with Peter Bovoso. We're excited to be running for town council. We believe in working with all of you to keep Berkeley Heights a great town that it is, now and in the future. My wife Maria and I have lived here 18 years, raised our 3 kids here, and been part of this terrific community. We love this town, and we're determined to keep it the special place that it is. But that takes vision, smart development, a thriving downtown, an outstanding school system, and affordability for all residents. As a New Jersey realtor for over 30 years, I know the critical factors that affect our property values. Probably the single biggest asset each of us have. Peter and I are homeowners, property tax payers just like you. We know the importance of every single tax dollar. We need to be sure we have sound budgets to provide the funding to keep our residents safe and provide the services that they need. We need to have partnerships in our community. We need to have partnerships with our community shareholders to find additional revenue streams. We need need representatives that work with the community and work with the residents in Worcester. This takes commitment, planning, and doing our homework. It takes building consistent relationships, sharing new ideas, and compromise. It takes working together, which has nothing to do with one's political calling card, and everything to do with people. We look forward to doing just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Next to speak is Mr. Yellen.
Thank you all very much for being here tonight. I'm Steve Yellen, and I'm running for council along with my good friend, Jill Zada. My parents, like most of you, came to this town because we knew it was a great place to raise a family, to give their kids tremendous opportunities to succeed. My dad is here tonight, and I would like to take a moment to say thanks, Mom and Dad, for choosing Berkeley Heights. I'm the small business point person, among other roles, for a large regional nonprofit, and was a communications consultant for nearly a decade before that. I'm a lifelong resident with a proven track record of giving back to our town as a volunteer and community leader for nearly a decade, working across party lines to get things done. Because as the saying goes, it's not a Democratic or Republican way to fix a problem. For example, I worked with a team of Democrats, Republicans, and Independents to save 3 acres of Emerson Lane neighborhood being turned upside down. I'm a member of the Cultural Events Committee and reported on council meetings in the independent press for nearly 2 years. Speaking of council meetings, I've regularly attended them since 2007, including budget meetings, so I know what the council can and cannot do, and it means Jill and I are the only team that can step up on day one with a full command of the issues that we're going to face. Jill and I are from Berkeley Heights and for Berkeley Heights. We look forward tonight to show how we're going to improve our town, to build on the change that you've told us we so desperately need. If you remember nothing else from tonight's debate, remember that there's only one team with broad bipartisan support. We're neither for the status quo, nor for divisive, dirty politics as usual. That's why Jill Zad and I are positively Berkeley Heights, and it's why I think tonight's debate will show we're the best people to do the job. Thank you.
The next person is Ms. Zada. Ed, please speak into the mic, because I think they need to hear it to be able to pick it up.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Communications Committee for tonight's debate. I am Jill Zada, and along with my running mate, Steve Yellen, we are here this evening to present our positive vision for Berkeley Heights. My family came to Berkeley Heights when I was young, in search of a great school system, a strong community spirit, and everything the suburban quality of life has to offer. I went through the public schools, played recreation sports, studied at the library, and otherwise took advantage of every opportunity this town provided. It was a wonderful way to grow up. Very few of us can say that they understand what it means to be more than one kind of resident. When I returned to my hometown a few years ago, I learned the strengths of this town matter at any age. As I consider Berkeley Heights a home for a future family, the need for a supportive community and a strong public school system comes full circle. But this is not all that drives me to serve you on council. I started my career in search of public service, working for a United States Senator. I saw firsthand how this official advocated for his constituency at home and in Washington. Following my time at the Senator's office, I worked at Goldman Sachs, supporting training and development initiatives for the Securities Division. I honed my business acumen while learning financial markets from one of the most prestigious financial banks in the world. I parlayed that love of business into a role at a small, scrappy technology startup. We were a small team on a tight budget, but we made it work by being responsible, working with others, and negotiating positions that allowed us to keep our lights on. Now we're a nationally recognized mobile technology company backed by Intel. Currently, I'm the Director of Customer Success, a client services position. As the saying goes, Steve and I have more tomorrows than yesterdays.
Excuse me, your time is up.
No problem. Thank you.
The next to speak is Mr. Macheski.
Hi. Can you hear me?
No.
No. Test.
No.
Test.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tom Macheski. I've lived in town for the past 11 years and have degrees in chemical engineering and international business. I've successfully worked as a vice president in the financial industry, as well as being a chief technology officer for a local tech startup. I've been happily married for 21 years and have 3 children, 2 of which are in the Berkeley Heights school system. The other candidates have only offered you vague slogans and affirmations of the status quo. I would like to tell you what I, Tom Macheski, stand for. I want the residents to have an opportunity to vote on how their tax dollars should be spent. Currently, the council acts as if it knows best and does not trust their own residents. They have denied them the opportunity to vote on how their tax dollars should be used. The distrust is mutual. I've spoken to well over 1,000 residents, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that many do not trust the council. One reason is that much of the decision making is done in closed meetings, voting afterwards only as a formality. Next, I stand for open government. I believe that in today's age of information, there is no excuse for the public not to be fully informed. Another major issue is the swap, where the majority of those that I've spoken to do not have a clear understanding of what is going on and resent being denied an opportunity to vote on this. If elected, I, Tom Macheski, promise to vote no on the swap, which will stop the swap in its tracks. I ask the other candidates to make exactly clear what their stance is on the swap. To sum it up, I, Tom Macheski, stand for having the residents have a say in how their tax dollars are spent. I stand for open government, and I promise I will do anything I can to stop the swap.
Time's up, thank you. And last is Mr. Bavoso.
Hi, I'm Peter Bavasso, and I appreciate you all for being here tonight. I really do thank you for taking the time. This September, my wife Janine and I, along with our 2 children, celebrated 6 years living in Berkeley Heights. And we still talk about day one when we bought our dream house in this town and moved in from Hoboken. I remember feeling that we found someplace special, and that was because of the people, our neighbors, the people who became our friends. And the first ones we met were actually their children, who welcomed us on the porch with warm brownies. And kids can tell you a lot about a community. These values and traditions of giving back are the foundation of this town, and the support base we will stand upon to see further, to see what comes next for our town. And although I immediately loved the people of Berkeley Heights, there were certain aspects in a physical way that felt a bit dated and hodgepodge. I remember thinking to myself, this can be better, and I'd like to help. I'm a vice president with Integrated Communications Agency in New York City. And for 16 years, I've been part of diverse teams working together to develop communication solutions for different organizations. What I've learned taking an active role in 1,000 strategy sessions is the best results always come from true collaboration. It is where things must always start and the reason things ultimately succeed. There are lots of good things going on in this town right now, and we need to piece these things together to keep the momentum going. I'll bring my open communication style and problem-solving experience to the town council. I'll help bring diverse groups together, allowing us to keep a vibrant community as we collectively move things forward. Conspiracy accusations and uninformed social media rants solve nothing. Collaborative efforts and partnerships is how we all succeed. Thank you once again for coming tonight.
Thank you. The opening statements are finished, and now we move to the questions from the press. In the order of speaking, I will, after you ask the first question, the first person to answer will be Mr. Bavoso. 1.5 minutes for responses again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First question is on infrastructure. The DPW maintains 50.46 miles of roads in the township. Is the current system for road maintenance working? If not, how often do you think roads should be repaved, catch basins fixed, and potholes filled? How would you pay for this work without tax increases, placing a heavy burden on the taxpayers?
Okay, Mr. Bavoso?
Thank you. Roads, obviously, as I talk to a lot of people, are a large subject in town. I don't think it's that unique in terms of towns and discussions. We have to realize, though, that 5 years ago, there wasn't actually even a plan for the roads in town. There was no plan. It was just basically a catch as catch can. And I think we need to think of roads in general, and I've tried to explain this in terms of maybe a philosophy, maybe a way we look at roads. Roads we need to think of as a living organism. The reality is that they are never done. They constantly change. It's not something that you check a box off that we did all the roads and that's the end of it. And there's a lot of talk about if we fixed all the roads at the same time. If we actually did fix all the roads simultaneously, and as of tomorrow I can say the roads are all done, all 56 miles of roads in town. The reality is you would have the same issue come up soon after because they would all deteriorate at the same time. Currently we're developing a rhythm and a bit of a pulse for maintaining these roads. There is currently a plan in place. It's not going to happen overnight. And as much as we want to think that nothing's happening, it's difficult to say that. Up to date, we've had 243 tons of asphalt laid. There's been 17,310 feet of actual, that's 3.3 miles of roads done to date. We do not have milling equipment in town. So when we think of the DPW is not doing milling and paving. It's not something we have the equipment for, and it's not something that we actually have the personnel for. They approach this with clusters. So when you think about why is one road being done over another, you can't jump around town with a milling team and actually touch upon all of the different bad roads. When you have a cluster of 10, if 5 are really bad, you're going to get 3 next to them that aren't as bad, and you're going to get 2 other ones that maybe aren't that bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kudo.
Peter's right. Roads are a living organism. Our roads in town and throughout the United States are basically a lifespan of 15 years. And fixing all the roads at once doesn't solve anything. It will increase your taxes, and most importantly, we miss out on grants. Right now, Snyder Avenue is being paid for grant money from the state. We've gotten $5,000 grants to pave local roads. And it's not just the roads you have to think about. It's the catch basins, it's the curbs, it's the runoff areas. There's a lot of things involved. The town council's been doing a great job with a 15-year plan. On the 15-year plan, we're over 6 years into it, and it keeps on going. If you notice carefully, you're getting now with the new website, you're getting the updates. We're doing Spring Ridge coming up. And my part of town was blessed with getting roads that hadn't been done over 20 years. So I think there's no way to do it without raising taxes, short of doing what's being done now, which is continuously fixing the roads as it goes along with the road plans in place.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Machewski.
Yes, roads in Berkeley Heights are in bad shape. I think most people agree with that. However, I feel it's only a symptom of the bigger issue, which is a general lack of accountability by the town government as a whole. I've spoken to thousands of you since June, and in one form or another, there has been a theme to the conversations. There is a lack of accountability. Starting with something like the swap and the $27 million municipal project, where the council has not only ignored the residents' request to stop the swap, but has gone to lengths to stifle their right to have a referendum. Onto the roads, where the people are frustrated because their complaints go seemingly unheard. Onto the businesses who need to jump through hoops to get a sign put up to advertise their business. Onto issues where people's own projects are stalled for one reason or another. We absolutely need a town that is responsive and accountable and who will listen to their residents and not just when 100 show up to show disapproval about being thrown in a basement.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
So the good news is there's a middle way between doing everything at once and continuing along the same path we're on now. And Jill and I have that middle way. We recognize, like everyone else, that if you have a 15-year road plan and roads need fixing after 15 years, it's not going to do a lot in the long run to help all the residents who have pothole-ridden roads, cracks in the pavement, damaged catch basins, and the like. So what we have a plan to do is to look at some of the various contracts, legal, architectural, engineering, that have been approved with regard to the redevelopment plan for the new municipal complex. Now, assuming we have a bond to move forward with that project, those funds from those contracts suddenly become available. They're already stuff that we are spending money on. Our plan is to transfer that funds to increase the support for road repairs. For example, our DPW is supposed to have 14 people on staff. They currently have 12, and only some of them are available for road repairs. So by doing this, we would enable us to do more in terms of short-term patching and other immediate fixes that our roads need. We would also look over the next 3 years to expand funding for the contractors that do the long-term permanent fixes. Again, by shifting resources within the budget in a conservative manner. In that way, we might be able to speed up the time that you get your road fixed by a year or two without raising your taxes. This is the kind of proactive, innovative thinking that Jill and I would bring to the council. And it's why we're the only team with broad bipartisan support in this town. They know it's not a Democratic or Republican way, like I said, to fix a pothole.
Thank you. Ms. Zana. Yeah.
So as you heard from Stephen, we have identified a middle way. And we have been speaking to countless residents, and this is their #1 concern. And while the council has put forth a plan to fix roads over 15 years, we've identified another way that we can accelerate that. But the more I speak to residents, both of us, we sometimes hear there are excuses, like it's a county road. Well, that's true, but I think this is a really good opportunity for us to try to take a leadership position and not just say it's the county's problem, but to step up and take ownership and try to build that bridge with the county. Adding 2 additional idea. The DPW's budget was has been slashed by 20% since 2014. How can we expect them to fix our roads in a timely manner when we're not even properly funding or financing that department? So, yes, roads are living, they're breathing, and it's a problem that all of us face. But there are ways that we can fix it with the resources we have right now without burdening taxpayers any further.
Thank you. Members of the press, question number 2, please.
Is there a rebuttal opportunity, please?
Did I skip one? I'm sorry, I apologize. Oh, would you like to rebut?
I would like
30
to.
seconds, 30
Thank
seconds.
you. Stephen and Jill, I do appreciate the positivity to start with. Without a doubt, the roads do need to be fixed as they are being addressed. But just 2 quick things. One, regarding the DPW staff, your numbers are a little bit off in terms of the amount of people. There are actually 13 currently on staff. There's a 14th who will be coming soon. They're just waiting for a background check. So those 2 positions are already filled. But the bigger issue and the idea in terms of moving the funds around, you have to understand that redevelopment has been done through the capital portion of the budget. Therefore, there are no funds to free up since they're not part of the operating budget. And technically transferring those funds would actually violate both the appropriation cap as well as the tax levy. So just to mention, good idea, good positive thought, but it doesn't actually work.
All right, Mr. Yellen, 30 seconds.
So I think that when we're talking about roads, and we're talking about things that we now have 2 DPW people being hired, it speaks to an overall issue in this town. This is the first time that someone who's been going to every single meeting for the last 3 years that I'm hearing about are hiring 2 new DPW people. There are other issues like this in town that people don't know what's going on. We have residents on certain roads who have been calling town for years who haven't gotten their circles fixed. So if there's a communications issue here, then that needs to be fixed, not just our roads.
Okay, thank you. No more rebuttals? Oh, okay, one more.
Firstly, I just want to say thanks to Jorge Casa Cuberto. If I spelled said his name wrong, I'm sorry, but he walked 52 miles of our road and rated each road. He was the one who basically gave the rating for each of the road. And he has officially become our first Berkeley Heights Road Scholar. We are doing about $800,000 of repaving each year. And for the same amount of money, I believe we can do all of the poor and poor fare rated roads over the next 4 years just by redefining the clusters. So no tax increase, no extra spending, just redefining the clusters.
Thank you. Okay, now, any more?
I'm just going to say one thing real quickly. Remember Peter's phrase, roads are a living, breathing organism? The clusters are constantly being redefined. What was done by the town council 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when they walked the roads themselves, with the town engineer to figure out which roads they needed repair, it's still being done. And it's being modified constantly. And the reason why you do clusters is to save money. No contractor is going to work on the left side of town and the right side of town at the exact same time.
Okay, thank you. I think we can move on to the next question from the press, please.
The next question is about the budget. The township uses a zero-based budgeting system. That means each department is supposed to calculate its budgetary needs without referring to the previous year's actual expenditures. Do you support zero-based budgeting? And if yes, please explain the advantages of this process. If you don't, please explain the disadvantages of this process.
Okay, the first to respond is Mr. Kudo.
Yes, I support zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting is the same thing you all do at home, except that instead of going before council and trying to figure it out, we have to decide what has to get spent. And with our business administrator and our CFO, each department has to go project their budget and show what they need to spend. Not what they spent last year, but what they project to spend the next year coming up. And they have to defend it. And by defending what they need, it gives a better control on what's going on. And not only is the zero-based budget part of what's being done right now in town, there's a 5-year plan, a 3-year capital plan to make sure these same departments talk so they can decide what has to get fixed now or maybe next year they can defer with that same zero-based budgeting. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, the next person will be Mr. Macheski.
I've been looking over the budget, and it's clear to me that we can definitely cut back. The first thing I would like to say is that the town, rightly so, likes to mention that school and county play a large role in our taxes. This is true. However, our taxes are snowballing. Last year, it was our municipal taxes that resulted in about 80% of the overall tax increase. Municipal was about 463,000 of the 566,200 2016 tax increase. While I don't have enough time to go through the budget line by line, I've mentioned that I am for cutting the municipal budget 5%. That was one of the things that I stand for, and I believe that that is something that can be done. We will get a 3% hotel tax coming on, and I think we need to think wisely about spending that. The second one is I believe what's going on is that as we roll off debt, we shouldn't just go into spending the entire debt that's rolling off, which seems to be a trend. The legal budget, we have spent we have budgeted $225,000 for legal budget. This seems excessive to me. I don't know why we get so involved in legal issues that we have to spend $225,000. I would tighten the budget. Last year we had 669,000, roughly 670,000 went into reserve. So we over budgeted about 5% of the municipal budget. That's fluffing the budget. And in addition to over budgeting, the revenue estimates were understated last year. So not only did we overstate the budget, but we understated the revenues. All of that we could cut and easily get 5%, if not 10%.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen.
So, like you, Jill and I are taxpayers, and we recognize that the goal is to try and keep the reality is that we have to keep our increases down as much as possible, or ideally try not to increase taxes at all. But understand that with zero-based budgeting, you have to make sure that you're actually starting from zero and working your way up to a level that you deem appropriate. Otherwise, it's just a gimmick. And there are a lot of places that have done zero-based budgeting where it's turned into a gimmick. So when it comes to budget meetings, as the only candidate that has gone regularly to budget meetings before running for office, I recognize that holding the line on taxes and on spending is not easy, which is why we need your input. Being fiscally responsible means that you have to not only work well with your colleagues, but you also have to treat the departments and respect they know what they're talking about. Last year, the governing body spent several $1,000s to hire an outside consultant to make sure the fire department's requests were what they needed. Now, I think a bunch of volunteer firefighters that have been doing this for decades don't need to have someone looking over their shoulder to tell them what they need to be doing. And I think that was something that should not have been done. The other things that come with studying the budget. There's a bill list that we go through on a regular basis. If you look at the bill list, there may be things that we can cut back and economize or find another way of using down the road. Ed D'Elia, as leaving the council, has usually handled the bill list. And if Jill and I are elected, we'll like to take that over to see what we can do to find economies down the road.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Barbosa.
Thank you very much. First of all, yes, I do agree with zero-based budgeting, allowing each year for the different departments to actually take a look and see what they need actually in terms of assessment of each department, absolutely critical in terms of what we do. Just a couple of things. This idea of taxes in town, and everybody, of course, like potholes, people are always going to complain about their taxes, but just in terms of communication, we have to understand with $1 in town, the way this actually breaks down for everybody in terms of a dollar, is that 18 cents is what the township gets. 18 cents out of every dollar is for the township. 56 cents is for the school, Union County gets 25, and the library gets 1. So when we're talking over and over again about the taxes, if your taxes are $10,000 in town, and you're paying $1,800, that's what you need to decide upon. Is $1,800 worth living in Berkeley Heights for you? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Because at the end of the day, that's the money we're talking about. 56 cents sounds a lot, but the reality is that your school system and your schools will keep your property value. A couple other things. I've met with the CEO, the CFO here in town, Michael Marceau. And by the way, anybody here in town as a public resident can do that. It's interesting that Tom has been through the budget, but I would recommend maybe sitting down with the CFO to take you through the budget. I'm not sure where the cuts are going to come from because I'm not going to cut a cop. I'm not going to cut a DPW employee. As Stephen says, he already feels we don't have enough. I'm not going to cut the seniors bus. And I'm certainly, at the end of the day, not going to cut bulk pickup. So when you actually sit down with Michael Marceau and get an understanding of the budget, you realize there's not that much actually to deal with in terms of cuts. Can you always look for better ways to use the money? Absolutely. But we have to understand that it's not that easy.
Thank you. And I think I might have skipped Ms. Zada. I apologize. Go right ahead.
So I think Stephen said it fairly clearly that zero-based budgeting only works if you're actually starting from zero and you're trying to really balance what are your revenues and what are your expenditures. And I believe that and Stephen and I both believe that there are opportunities that we can be a little bit more stringent in what we're spending our money on. I really like the comment that that the budget is online and you can go through it. But the budget used to also be presented in a few planning meetings. And unfortunately, now that actually has only been reduced to 2. So the residents are losing some visibility you have in how your money is spent and where you want it to go. Even our tax increase has been small, but small accumulates. You know, you go from a mountain and a molehill. So I believe that there are ways that we can make sure that we keep our tax burden as low as possible and also going through our budget and making sure that we're making the right spending decisions.
Thank you. Are there rebuttals?
Yes.
Okay.
Wasn't he supposed to go last or no?
Well, actually, I missed Ms. Zada, so I apologize for that.
He wasn't last. No, I mean.
Please, go right ahead.
I don't think you get a rebuttal.
Go right ahead.
Whoever wants to rebut, please rebut. It's a little hard to keep track of rebuttals and speaking orders, so if you would like to rebut, Mr. Majewski, go right ahead.
No,
No rebuttal.
So
Okay.
can I go ahead?
No, go right ahead.
I don't get a rebuttal?
because you were supposed to be last, right? So we'll determine you don't get a rebuttal.
Okay.
Is that right?
And according to the rules, the last person who speaks does not get to rebut.
That was, I went second to last time. I was keeping track. I think Jill went last.
You know what?
I will accept the fact that I went last, and so I will not get a rebuttal.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zada.
Thank you. Collaboration, appreciate it. Just a quick mention in terms of the budget, in terms of publicly. You know, again, anybody can meet and make a meeting and plan a meeting with the CFO, but the reality is the budget is presented publicly. The funny part about it is that the average is about 3 people, 5 people show up to actually listen to the presentation. So again, I think it's encouraging people to be more involved, to get more involved in terms of what's going on in town. And it is there. It's not like it's being hidden. You go through the entire budget. So it's just a matter of, do you want to attend the meeting? Can you make the meeting? It is out there publicly. It does happen.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Mr. Majewski.
Okay, first of all, we do not have the numbers that the CFO provides, but to get back to the thing, the cuts that I'm proposing, will there be no loss of service? These are just budget fluff that's in there. Again, 669,000 extra was added to the budget, and our revenues were understated by 266,000. The legal budget, I would cut the legal budget. I think that the reason our legal budget is so high is because we get involved in these crazy issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Young?
So I think if the issue is that you don't have many people showing up to the budget meeting, which I know haven't been one of the few people to be there, the issue isn't to have less budget meetings. The issue is to encourage more people with more of an active publicity and awareness to come to these meetings. That to me is the better option than cutting them down to 2, in my view. The other thing I would say is if you're going to say we're going to make these big cuts, 5% across the board, I think you need to be specific, because that could be someone's livelihood that's on the line you're talking about.
I was specific.
Okay, and one last rebuttal,
One
please.
last rebuttal. First off, with the budget, there are no gimmicks. Secondly, the legal reason we had such large legal fees were for several lawsuits that were taking place in town. Thirdly, since we only have a short time, is a hotel tax. That's mandated by the state, and we don't know when we're going to get the money back from that. And it's fiscally irresponsible to count money that you don't have right now to do something you're planning on doing. You're not a member of the council, and you can't take that money.
Okay, thank you. Now to the next question from the members of the press, please.
The question's on municipal redevelopment. Tonight, the Township Council adopted settlement agreements with developers of 4 properties. They're going to go to court on Monday to see if they will find out if these are going to be agreed upon. The properties are the former King's property, Connell, 196 Locust, and the former theater property. The number of housing units in the township will increase by about 700 units if all you satisfied with these settlements, that these settlements are in the best interest of the town, and do you support them?
Okay, the first person to speak is Mr. Macheski.
I'm going to actually speak about the swap rather than this, because this is something that has.
I think we need to answer the questions as they are asked, please.
Okay, well, I got to lead up to it. The residents need to be able to vote on the $27 million project, which is the swap. It's a municipal project that's going on, and the people have been denied a vote. In the normal course of events for capital projects, voters always have an option of referendum if they want to. In this case, however, the council chose a route that forbids any chance for binding vote. That should tell you how much trust they have in the voters. At the end of the day, it's the taxpayers that need to pay for this. They need to decide if they want it or not. On top of this, much of the decisions that were made on the municipal building and swap were done in closed meeting, executive sessions, under the guise of contract negotiations, with voting being done afterwards only as a formality. So people have not been witness to the full intent and motivation of the project. On top of all this, there's the issue of conflict of interest that seems to bug a bunch of people. The residents that I have spoken to seem to resent the route that the council has taken.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Yellen.
Well, I do hope the audience does give us a question about the land swap, because I would love to tell people where I stand on it. But that's not the question.
You can answer it.
Regarding the municipal redevelopment situation, understand that with affordable housing, our hands were tied to a large degree by the choice of the state Supreme Court. Jill and I believe that politics should take second place here. The governing body did a good job in reaching a good faith settlement. That was, for the most part, the best we could get under the circumstances. That ties, of course, into our downtown and what we can do to improve our downtown. There's two major problems. One is, how do you make it possible for businesses to stay in business and improve the ability of consumers to stay in Berkeley Heights? The second is parking. Jill and I have a plan to create a special improvement district, which is something that other towns like us have done to try and fix their downtowns. It would create a committee of business owners, landlords, Chamber of Commerce officials, and residents to form a firm blueprint as to how we can improve our downtown. It could be incorporated into the master plan that we're working on next year. This would mean, for example, that we could set a standardized rule for increasing parking, or bringing in an expert from the state of New Jersey who do that sort of thing for free to help identify what we can do to make our downtown unique compared to our neighbors. We're losing the race for an attractive downtown to our neighbors like New Providence. We've got to catch up to them if we're going to have homeowners that want to come here for the same kind of value and the quality of life that Jill and I have had growing up here.
Thank you. Ms. Zada.
Thank you.
I didn't forget you this time.
I really
Sorry.
appreciate it, thank you. So I think Stephen did a great job of explaining our position on the municipal redevelopment. We believe that politics should take second fiddle to making sure that our town does not turn into a city by accident. But at the same time, we have to make sure we don't make similar accidents with our downtown. We need to be very, very intentional about the space that we're using and how we can attract businesses. So parking is a huge concern, making sure that people are allowed to park their cars and enjoy the downtown environment. Another concept is that some of the lots are too small. Can you really develop on some of these lots? Would it really, really make sense to put a business there? I think that for a time, we're welcoming to different businesses and different ways to revitalize our downtown, but we need to be very strategic and very intentional about who we let build and how we let that shape our downtown community.
Thank you. Mr. Boboso.
The municipal redevelopment is an amazing thing that's currently happening in town. It's one of the positive developments that I was talking about. If we start with the municipal complex itself, in terms of starting to be a catalyst for downtown, in terms of what we see, first of all, the current facilities are not up to code. They are not ADA compliant. They basically need to be changed. There was even talk, I think, back in 1988 that they should have been looking at doing this. It's been kicked down the road for quite some time. This modern library and learning center, the idea of a community rec center for the actual town, for various youth activities, sports clubs, things along those lines. This senior community center on the main floor of the property. The police station, which quite honestly, they've been living in trailers now for years and it's not exactly the place to be. And ultimately, this will be a catalyst where, as you see pushing down, Follow that through. It literally started with the Veterans Memorial Park. And if you start to push through Peppertown, where now we're talking about the Kings and the movie theater being combined into a combination of retail and residential, you start to get a sense of what happens down there in terms of the energy of the properties. Locust Avenue, another place in terms of 55 and older development on something that's been dead for 10 years back there. Nothing happening, an old abandoned commercial property, and ultimately the Connell property with the steakhouse and the hotel coming. A lot of things happening in town, but the downtown section around Kings as well as the movie theater, you can start to sense whether this will be a central area for residential as well as business, and starts to fuel what will be a new vibe downtown. Close to the train station, this is exactly the type of thing that people are talking about they're looking for in towns when they're looking for places to live. It's an exciting time, a lot of good things going on.
Thank you. Mr. Kudo.
The question was the extra units and the impact on the town. I think the town did a great job in negotiating with the state and with the developers. And the reason is they saved us they protected us for 10 years from those remedy laws and some of the affordable housing laws. But putting that aside, it's all part of the same guidelines of what's being done for the downtown district. If you look at the units that are being built, you have the 55 and over complex on Locust. You have the King's units, you have the theater units being redeveloped, you have extra parking and extra commercial spaces. It's being designed with people in mind. It's being designed that people can walk the downtown with families and with friends and see what's going on. Parking is included in the master plan, and the new complex includes extra parking spaces for the train station. So I think they're doing a great job, and I think the impact by us managing this positive development, it allows us, the taxpayers, to do what's best interest of our town. This will allow us to maintain the small town feel that we enjoy, while avoiding the negative impact on neighborhoods as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttals?
Yes. Peter, do you support a vote? Do you think that the people should have any say in this $27 million municipal project?
That's not a rebuttal, that's a separate question.
He can use it. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, I know, but you need to rebut what the comments were made, not...
Would you like me to answer it? I'm perfectly
Yeah,
fine.
please
to
answer.
If you want to answer it.
It's up to the moderator. That's how it usually works in a debate. Is it okay?
I would say no, but, you know.
I guess it's not okay.
Okay, it's not okay. Are there rebuttals that are pertinent to the comments that were made?
Yes. For Stephen, the Special Improvement District, I don't believe that you own a business, but from my understanding, you're not a business owner. Shouldn't this be something that is initiated from the business owners if they want it? Remember, this is a tax. You're putting an additional burden on the downtown businesses, and the people that I've spoken to are already complaining about their taxes being out of control. Businesses are being shut down, are closing because of high taxes for the business district, and you're asking for another tax. I think they need to be the one that are bringing up this tax. Thanks.
Okay, any other rebuttals pertinent to this question? Stephen?
Tom, when businesses can't open in Berkeley Heights and our commercial rateables suffer, everybody's taxes go up. You don't need to have a business to know that your taxes go up when you don't have commercial rateables to offset individual rateables. This is why in the long term,
It's about the SID.
you know, Tom, we teach our children not to interrupt each other.
We're not having a discussion. Stephen, go right ahead.
Thank you. This is why the long-term special improvement district might be the solution for improving our downtown. I've been here year after year, and we have talked year after year about how our downtown is struggling and we need to do more to improve it. Here's a specific idea Jill and I have offered that might fix the problem. We're not interested in pointing fingers, we're interested in getting things done.
Any other rebuttals? Okay.
I spoke last.
You spoke last, so we're going to go by the rules. Sorry about that. Is there another question from the press?
One last question.
Okay.
This is about open government and communication. So how do you improve communication with the residents of Berkeley Heights? That's the first part. And then how would you describe your relationship with residents, and how should you deal with them as a council person?
First to answer would be Mr. Young.
This is a great question because this is something I have been passionate about in all the years I've been involved in town. For years, I spent a lot of time arguing for increased communications and transparency in town hall. For 5 years, I pushed for having council meetings televised. Now they're televised. I pushed to have a meeting on the weekends to let more people know about a particular issue. Now it's been done. 3 years ago, I talked about having council meetings being done live. Now it's being done. So I'm proud to have helped cause change and not just speak about it. So So we now need to build on those communications efforts, and Jill and I have a real plan to do that. One, we want to expand on the open house thing by having a monthly town hall event on a weekend afternoon. People work in the evenings, they have kids, they really can't come to a council meeting. Two, we want to restore the town newsletter so that there's a physical access information in addition to digital. We would pay for that by getting rid of the paid work for the mayor's roundtable. This is a straight camera shot that is done for 30 minutes that costs the taxpayer $750 every month. Like a volunteer could do that for free, and we could use that money to instead expand information awareness to the people of our town by print. In addition, Jill and I want to go out and hold as many meetings as we can with people around town. Grab coffee with you, learn what's on your mind, find out more about what we can do to help. It's why we've been going door to door across town, because we want to do the best we can to ensure every resident has a voice. And that means respecting everyone, whether or not you agree with those voices or not. No one should be shut down or yelled at or rejected because they have a different point of view. We can't move forward together if we tell people you don't agree with us, so therefore we put you down. That's not the way to go.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Zada.
Thank you. So, as you've heard from Stephen, we are very committed to increasing transparency and communication on the council. In addition to some of these efforts that Stephen just listed, it would be wonderful if we could try to figure out how to better communicate with residents on how they can get involved in the community as well. In one of our recent resident conversations, somebody asked, how can I join the communications committee? How can we make that process a lot easier? How can we help and enable people to volunteer in the community? For example, on the communications committee, what if there was an open season to submit a proposal where you have an idea and that's what you want to bring to the table, and then if it's voted on, you can join and you can implement it, and it can be publicly marketed. We need to find a way not just to broadcast the message, but to bring people into the fold. A diversity of opinion is the only way we're going to really understand how people feel about what's going on in town. By giving as many residents the opportunity to voice their opinions and their concerns is the only way town council is going to know how to properly govern this town.
Thank you. Mr. Bevoso.
Obviously a passion of mine regarding communications, and communication needs to be a priority and not an afterthought. And maybe in some capacities it has been for some time. Now we're moving forward with certain things, but it can always be better. The website, for instance, has come up recently. It was not very good. I think the new one is actually much more functional, easier to navigate, and we've got to continue moving forward with this type of approach. The council meetings, again, have been recorded, had some issues, maybe how quickly they are being posted. There's technology nowadays that there's absolutely no reason why we can't have things that are recorded up 24 to 48 hours max afterwards. In some ways, I think the communication committee should almost be thought of as, I've spoken to people in town, more of a technology and communication committee. I think we should actually try to pull people in. There's a lot of people, some are actually sitting here now with great technology skill sets, and that's that collaborative effort. Communication is obviously for everybody, and we want to try and actually beef up what we're currently doing with communication. And with today's technology, we should easily be able to do that. Other things in terms of what's happening, more publicity, obviously, what's going on in town. It's interesting. The number one thing seems to be the Berkeley Heights Facebook forum. Lots of people on it. Are there ways that we can find, to work with Hillary Frolic, who manages the site, to actually use that as a vehicle? Don't fight vehicles that exist from communication purposes. Try to find ways to work with them. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that. This is how people are communicating. This is how people want to be more in the know. And I think that's a great way to think about it. How can we get more people in the know? How can we get more people involved? And as much as I like the fact that people should be able to see the town council meeting streaming, it'd be great to get more people at the actual meeting itself. How can we actually do that? So there's a lot of good things we can do with communications.
Thank you. And Mr. Macheski.
It's me. It's me. Okay. I believe in open government. It's one of the main things I'm running on since I started. Open government reduces secrecy. Secrecy can foster corruption and distrust. A lack of open government may be one of the main reasons for the distrust, the trust issues in this town. I personally showed the town how to, at no cost, provide a live stream of public meetings. Prior to me streaming on the Berkeley Heights Forum, they dismissed live streaming because of the costs and that people weren't interested. In fact, 1,500 people have watched one meeting that we had. There's 1,500 views. I can't say it's 1,500 people, but Second, I mentioned that of all the candidates, I've been the only candidate that has been public and open about what I stand for. Other candidates have only provided vague slogans and affirmation of how great the council is doing. I've been digging and publishing my findings and opinions and bringing things to light since early June. I've been outside of Dunkin' Donuts every weekend since June, speaking to anyone who was interested in discussing or had questions about the town. I've been the only one that has been transparent in my campaign, and I will be equally transparent when I am elected. I think that the town website can have additional documents. I think too many documents are hidden behind Oprah. I think we can make the bill list, all supporting documents for resolutions, administrators' reports, all invoices that are mentioned in the bill list, all salaries and wages, executive sessions. And the other thing is they hide behind executive sessions too often, and we need to stop the abuse of executive sessions.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Mr. Kudo.
Well, I have to speak first. No one asked me yet.
You spoke. No?
Hi, everyone. Let's raise your hand.
I'm sorry, but, okay, sorry about that, but, okay.
Communications.
Go right ahead.
Communication should be continuous, accurate, reliable dissemination of information, especially in matters of public safety. Technology is and has leapfrogged over the last few years. With the newest release of the town website, there's still space for improvement. The last council meeting, all the candidates that were there agreed it was a step in the right direction. We need at least one site where residents can get accurate information, not just Dunkin' Donuts. We need to appreciate the volunteer initiative that led to professional upgrades. Each volunteer brings to the table his or her ideas and skills, but rather than whining about it, they roll up their sleeves and dedicate their time and skills to problem solving. For that, they should be applauded and not condemned on social media or online. The council heard the complaints and is working with the volunteers and has made significant improvements from the old website. The new facility will have streaming capabilities, but there's still no need to wait for that. I'm sure we can get it done and activated in the very, very near future. The Mayor's Roundtable, I think, is an excellent forum for discussion. For the past several meetings, all the council members, all of us at the table have watched it at least once for this debate. There's been at least 3 sessions on affordable housing, there's been 3 on the redevelopment, and the rest have been discussions with department heads. It's a valuable source, it's just a start. Hopefully you all looked at the new website and registered on the right-hand side for updates. It's a great idea. I'm getting the updates now on the road pavings and the schools. So look at the new website, register for your updates. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. I keep crossing off the wrong numbers here. Any rebuttals? Well, officially, Mr. Machewski, you were the last speaker, even though you weren't the last speaker. So let's let somebody else. Let's let somebody else. Let's let somebody else rebut first. If there are rebuttals,
He can rebut first. It would be. It's fine.
he can. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, just wanted to say that the Mayor's Roundtable is a $10,000 expenditure in a year, so I don't think it gets very little viewership, and it's not worth it. But again, I just want to emphasize the executive sessions and how they're abused. Much of the pre-decision discussion and the decisions themselves in town are done in closed meetings, to which even the meeting notes are not released for sometimes years afterwards. So that's one of the biggest things we need to address with open government. As citizens, we cannot.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd like to go. First of all, the Mayor's Roundtable, in terms of just what we're talking about here, there's an $18 million budget in town overall. This is $10,000. It's $750 an episode. For the most. Is someone supposed to speak when I'm speaking?
No, excuse me.
Just checking.
One speaker at a time, please.
My time isn't being hit now, right? Okay, thank you. It is informative for people. It is a recap or a nutshell, often in terms of what occurred in the council meeting. It is valuable for some people. I will say I think it's great that we are streaming. Tom, you never had 1,500 people watching your stream. It might have been 3 to 5, which is fine, but nonetheless, it was not 1,500 people. And in the end, I know you absolutely have been digging in on your opinions, without a doubt, but we also know what people say about opinions. And in the end, you attacked the website. You attacked it immediately on social media, but then when you found out it was $3,000,
Okay, thank you.
came back and said it was okay.
Thank you. Okay. One more? Last one, Mr. Yellen. Or Ms. Zada, the two of you. The 2 last rebuts.
Thank you. I'll go first. I do just want to point out that this is the second time that we've heard about just a Small expenses, they add up. And we're about to take on a very significant municipal project. And if we're not watching where our money is going, at the end of the day, residents and taxpayers are going to pay for that.
Go ahead.
Excellent.
And so A, Jill is absolutely correct. And B, there's nothing wrong with the Mayor's Roundtable by itself. It's always good to have more information out there than not. The point is you can do that with a volunteer for free. It's not a complicated setup for it. So our goal is not to shut down anyone's communication. Our goal is to increase it, but also make sure we're saving every penny we can so that we don't tax our citizens by as much as we have to. I think, again, that's the middle way that Jill and I are looking to provide. Get positive things done while trying to bring as many people together as we can.
Thanks. Okay. The press, that's the last question? Okay, that ends part one. Now, there's supposed to be a break, but it's 20 to 9, and we're supposed to be finishing at 8:50? No? Oh, at 9 o'clock. Okay, so that still only gives us 20 minutes, and there are a lot of questions in the bowl. So if someone really has an objection, I think we should move on.
Can I get some more water? Is there any water?
No, we're finished with this part of the program. We're moving on to the second part of the program, which is questions from the audience. There were lots of good questions. There are lots of duplications. There you go, whatever, work it out. There are lots of good questions, but lots of duplications. So I had to sort them through, because otherwise we'd be asking the same question 6 times. So what I'm going to do is, and now the order of speaking is still part of this chart, if I don't skip over somebody. And it's now 1 minute for an answer, and then the 30 seconds for the rebuttal. So, go ahead. Okay. We had a lot of questions on sports fields. Our sports fields need to be better maintained and upgraded. What would be your plan to improve them? And the first person to answer would be Ms. Zada.
Great. So this is actually a great question, and I'm really glad that it was submitted into the bowl. So after the roads, the number one thing we hear from residents is that our sports fields are not well maintained. And it's really not the fault of Mr. Barton. It's more that there hasn't been really enough attention given to it. So our schools are great, but when kids get out of school, they go right to the playing field. And that's kind of the other side of it, why you live in this town. So we need to do a better job of trying to figure out how we can water these fields, maintain these fields. And Stephen and I have decided that it's time that we target a very specific revenue stream and hold that as a fund to support and pay for the sports fields. Additionally, the county has helped other towns with providing a turf field, for example. I mentioned earlier that trying to get our tax money to work better for us, this is a great way to engage the county and put our tax money to work with them.
Okay, and next would be Mr. Bovoso.
Yes, fields without a doubt. As a baseball dad, I've been on many of the fields in terms of town, and yes, they can be better. Let's just keep in mind for a second, though, people talk about the fields in town. There's technically only, we'll call it 2.5 fields in town that are actually Berkeley Heights fields, not county, not Board of Ed. That's Memorial Field, a part of Lower Columbia, and the small field at Horseshoe. Not the other two that they just did, those are county, the smaller field. So I think, for me personally, in terms of knowing the head of the PAL, this is actually a Board of Ed aspect as well, and the rec committee. I mean, we literally should there's a rec trust that there is money in that. I think we need to sit around a table and look at each other in the face and say, is this the best we can do with these fields? Because it's not the best we can do with these fields. We need to keep our eyes out on grant money as well that's out there. But the reality is that I think even through the rec trust, looking at some of that money, we can find ways to make these fields more acceptable. So when other towns come in and play us and travel, we're not embarrassed by grasping up to our knees in the outfield.
Thank you. Mr. Macheski.
I just want to address Stephen's article, which was in the TAP, where he said that we should have a dedicated fund that's coming from the hotel tax. The hotel tax is going to be roughly...
Excuse me, the question was on sports fields.
I'm getting that.
Okay.
Can I
You're using your time, go right ahead.
Yeah, there was $300,000 that we're getting from the health, the hotel tax that Stephen is saying that should go to the fields. I think this is absurd. And in general, historically, the town has never dedicated revenues for a particular purpose. It is a problem having a dedicated funding source. He's clearly making a play for certain voting bloc, but this is a really bad idea. If we need money to fix up the fields, then let's appropriate it. But put $300,000 is just absurd.
Okay, Mr. Yellen.
Yes, Tom, we do have an issue with our fields, and that's why we should appropriate money to deal with it. So basically what Jill and I have come up with is what we call our Fixed Fields Fast Plan. And we've spoken to a lot of people who are coaches, PAL leaders, families with kids who play sports, like I did as a kid. And they recognize this is unacceptable, and it's been going on for years. And now that Jill and I have come forward with a specific plan to fix these fields, we have gotten a lot of great feedback from people who are glad that there is now people willing to take a leadership role in doing this. Jill and I will spearhead this if we're elected. We will want to form a strong partnership, not just with the Board of Education, but with the county and the PAL. Because you can have a public-private partnership to help not just watering the fields, retaining them, but by building the kind of amenities on them that put us on the same level as our neighbors. For example, having covers over the dugouts when baseball players are playing. Right now, many of the fields, they just have water, kind of rain or anything coming down on them that doesn't protect them from the elements. We need to fix the paddings at the back of Snyder Field, which can not only be a hazard to our kids, but look pretty unsightly. Again, Jill and I have a specific plan, and that's what makes us the best team.
Thank you. Did I forget anybody? Mr. Kuto.
I'm not feeling the love.
I knew I forgot you. I apologize.
I love you.
As a soccer dad, as a baseball dad, as a dad who watches kids running on the track, the fields have to be maintained. But the fields aren't all the town's fields. They belong to the Board of Education and the county. And by working in cooperation with the county and with the town, we can get these things done. In the town, there is a recreational trust, and it's there to use and fix the fields. And Tom Barton's doing a great job. But what we need is volunteers. We need volunteers to spearhead and step up and help out Tom Barton, to help and apply for these grant dollars. And that's one thing that's been lacking. With the communication system taking place in the town and with more public discussions such as this, I think it's possible to get more people to step up and get involved and help both for the grant dollars and make our fields better. Thank you.
Okay, do we need rebuttals on this subject? Okay, who would like to go first? Go right ahead.
Sorry, is there a rebuttal?
I said, are there any rebuttals?
Yeah, I just want to, again, $300,000 is too much to spend on a year on the sports fields. And it shouldn't be, if we need the money, let's appropriate it through the normal way.
Anyone else, Mr. Bogoso?
Thank you. My first rebuttal would be that, Tom, I don't think anyone appreciates that you've interrupted pretty much everybody up here since we started. That's my first part of the rebuttal. The second part is that I think that everybody's referring to what is known as the host tax with the hotel coming. Now, there's a 1% to 3%. I don't know where the $300,000 is coming from because nobody really knows what that number is currently. The reality is, though, to actually lock that money in, this is a new revenue stream for the town. Exciting, really great to have the hotel coming. We also were able to sell a liquor license because it was a hotel, another $325,000. But the reality is, you don't want to lock that money up in a fund strictly for the fields. You wouldn't be able to allocate it towards anything else.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Yellen? Yeah.
The question is not about whether we use every single penny for that dedicated fund. The question is, should we use some of the revenue from that to help finally get leadership going and the ball rolling on fixing the fields? Again, year after year, this has been an issue that has not been resolved. Now this issue's come to the fore because Jill and I put out a specific plan to fix the fields. We believe in taking leadership here. This is again why we're the only team with broad bipartisan support, because they know we're the kind of team that's going to bring that new energy and new perspective to things like fixing our fields and fixing our roads.
Okay, thank you. I think we should move on. Next question. What will you do to ensure that the Berkeley Heights public have access to the resources at the present library during the transition?
Yes.
And the first, that was a popular question. And the first person to answer is Mr. Bogoso.
Well, as far as I understand, I'm not sure exactly what the question means as far as the new library being constructed versus the one that's currently there. Is that what the question refers to?
somehow people feel that there won't be access to resources in the transition. That's how I read this question.
Well, I'll talk about it from what I understand. One of the beautiful aspects of the plan is that in terms of the municipal complex where it currently is, the library is not on that location, obviously. They're building this in parallel. So at one point there was discussion of shutting down the police station, needing to move it, needing to move the admin buildings. That's not going to happen in parallel. I don't think the library where it currently is would be affected by the actual the new construction of the new library while it's going on. And I'm just not 100% sure about that. I apologize, but since it's in a different location, it does not seem to be part of where the construction is currently going on.
Okay, Mr. Kudo.
I've never heard any rumor of the library being closed down. I like the library. My kids have gone to the library. They hang there. They used to be there after school. It's an important part of the community. New town center is going to have to be built in 3 phases. And from my understanding from the preliminary discussions that I've been hearing in town hall meetings, when they're all done, the library gets moved over. There's nothing that I've heard so far that says the library is being closed.
Okay, Mr. Machewski.
We won't own it, I think, by that time, so I don't know what they're talking about, so we can have control over it. The second thing is, if I get elected, I'm going to stop the swap, so it won't be an issue. I want to know what the rest of the people on this council, candidates running, stand on the swap.
Excuse me, that's not a question. I mean, nobody put that in here. I didn't see a single question
The
about
question's about the library, right? The library is part of the swap, is it not?
It's up to, I mean, I don't live in town, it's up to the league to decide.
From the moderator. Candidates respond to the questions, they don't ask each other questions. That's the
Okay, I'm making a statement. I have not heard from any of the other candidates that what they stand on the swap. From my understanding, everybody else is for the swap going through. I'm the only one that will stop the swap. There will not be a problem with the library if the swap is stopped. We keep ownership of the library, and there's not an issue. We can spend money to improve it, we can talk about that, but we need a vote. We need a vote. It's absurd that we do not get a vote on a $27 million project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yellen.
So I will answer that now, since I think it's an appropriate segue. First, understand there are 2 separate items here. One is the exchange of property with Little Flower Church and the town library. That's the swap. Second is the building of the new town complex next to the site of the current town hall. Understand this. We have had a town hall which the police station has been deemed unsafe to work in by the county prosecutor for 8 years. Our emergency dispatch operates out of a trailer at the back of town hall. Our seniors have to pay rent to meet somewhere once a week. We have a library that is dangerously antiquated and violates the ADA. So if we stop the swap, we are going to have continual issues with a town infrastructure that lags further and further behind and will cost more and more to deal with. Now, Jill and I believe we owe it to the people of this town, if we are elected, to look at the whole issue. There are a lot of documents that, for legal reasons, can't be disclosed publicly. They're part of the negotiations. If we're elected, we're going to take a look at that and make sure this is indeed something we believe to be the best thing for our town. Probably it is, but we owe it to the people of this town, as people who were not part of the whole process of getting us here,
Thank you.
to do our due diligence.
Thank you. Ms. Zada.
Thank you. Okay, so just to clarify, the reason why we're going to ask a question about the library is because it is involved in the swap. The library will belong to Little Flower, and therefore it may or may not be operational. And so that's the concern. So we could lose the library while we are in the process of building a new one. Now, as Stephen stated, we are very interested in seeing the plans for the new municipal complex and the budget that goes along with it. That being said, Berkeley Heights is a great place to live, and it is a great place to live because all we offer our residents. If you look around us, you see towns that have wonderful community centers, big, beautiful libraries. And while Berkeley Heights is a great place to live right now, what is the story 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? We are making a huge investment in the future of our town, in our children, and in ourselves.
Thank you. Are there rebuttals on this subject?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to mention, since Tom gets very excited about this, yelling a lot. First of all, the municipal redevelopment falls under the redevelopment law of the state. This is one of those issues that is not a council issue. If Tom would like to go to the state and change the legislator, that's a different conversation. It's redevelopment law. There's no loophole. There's no back office dealings. This was actually heard by the public for years. They changed the location at one point. There's no conflict of interest. All of those court cases have been settled. There's currently a contract going on with Little Flower. It will proceed. You cannot stop whatever it is he's talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I do. In fact, the town has spent roughly about $300,000 in legal fees to pursue this redevelopment law. So they went out of their way. There is one vote left, and that vote, there's 4 people that can vote to recuse themselves because of conflict of interest. There's 4 left. All 4 people need to vote for this. If I get on, I am voting no. It stops the swap in its tracks. We need to stop this. We need a vote. I want to know, not only do you want the municipal building, but do you think that the people deserve a vote on $27 million? It's about the vote and the right to vote, how our tax money is being spent.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Kudo?
The redevelopment and the swap is being confused. The redevelopment is basically a cornerstone of what's being done to our downtown. I've heard so far at this table that we should be comparing ourselves to other towns. I think what's being done now allows our town to decide our future, and we have to get it done. It's been explained already that it's ADA non-compliant. Our police captains in trailers for 20 years. We have a town hall that does not suit the needs of our employees. We want a place that's going to be a cornerstone, give more parking for commuters, and be a place that's centrally located for everybody, including the senior citizens and the library. Thank you.
Any more? Mr. Yellen?
So again, if we're going to assume for the moment that Mr. Rachesky is right, and he can kill the swamp if he is elected, then I think we have to understand, as Jill pointed out, the consequences of doing so. We have gone down a long road in which this plan has undergone many alterations. A lot of stakes have been placed in the ground, which will be very difficult at this point to simply root up and start all over again. It's not that Jill and I are for the plan 100% as it is now. That's why we want to go up there and do our due diligence by looking at the whole picture. The council cannot disclose some of these things publicly because of the legal intricacies around it. So until we get up there, we can't say definitively yes or no, because that would not be responsible.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one last question. What are your plans for increased programming and services for senior citizens? And the first person to speak is Mr. Kudo.
Take it back. Increasing programs for senior citizens is actually a good cornerstone because I'm getting older myself, and it's something I want to stay in town, I believe in. The new town hall offers an opportunity to have the senior citizens in one central location with more parking, cuts back our expenses with the town for a separate location, and it allows us possibly to bring in new programs. Right now, Union County College offers free classes if you're 65 and over. We could bring a life center in, working in cooperation with Union County College for the seniors, and that allows them more learning opportunities, become more computer friendly and computer savvy. On top of that, working with the county, since 25 cents of your dollar goes into the county budget, we can get back grant money for help them repair their homes, help them apply for home repairs and home improvements. It's important, and I think it's possible to get it done.
Thank you. Mr. Michewski?
I just believe that $27 million is a huge price tag for seniors to have a room without. If it's a financial thing, we can deal with it. It could be done much more expensive. In addition, if I, Tom Michewski, get elected, I will give my entire salary as a councilman to the seniors to improve whatever services they want.
Thank you. Mr. Yellen?
I'm sure the seniors would appreciate the $3,500 a year. And I mean that. Look.
A little bit.
Is that all it is?
Will you do it too?
You don't want to do that back at the time. So, look, having grown up in this town, I've come to know many of the seniors in this town, and they don't ask for very much. $3,500 goes a long way to helping them with some more of their programs. So that's a great idea, Tom. I also like what Manny said about bringing in county programs, but I think we can do more on top of that. One of the things Jill and I had talked about was having a Celebrate Berkeley Heights Week. The idea is to not just talk about the things we want to improve, but celebrate the things that are already good about our town, like a lot of the great volunteers we have of all ages. As part of that, we'd like to have a Senior Citizens Day. I think that would be a way of showing our respect and appreciation for people, some who have made great contributions over the course of their time in Berkeley Heights. We'd also want to do one for our firefighters, who are incredible volunteers, who risk their lives without paying a cent for them, and for other community leaders in our town. This is the kind of positive change that Jill and I are running on. And again, it's why we're the team with broad bipartisan support to help move our town in a direction where all of us have a say and all of us are welcomed.
Thank you, Ms. Zana.
Thank you. So I think Stephen actually put it in fantastic words, but the senior citizens are a bedrock of our community, and we have to be very cognizant of honoring them and recognizing them and their needs. And so some of what has already been said, grant programs for home safety courses, bringing more programming into the new municipal center are great ideas. And when we were thinking about a Celebrate Berkeley Heights Week, we were considering, it started with the seniors, and then we thought about the rescue squad, and we thought about the fire department. And people are giving themselves, they're giving their time and their energy, and they're not being paid. And I think that we need to give back to those type of people.
Thank you, Mr. Barbosa.
One of the best aspects, and there's quite a few regarding the municipal redevelopment and our new municipal complex, is the Senior Community Center. This is well deserved. Half the traditions and the values we're talking about have been developed and exist in this town because of our seniors. Nothing made me happier to see Joan Luciano and the team realize that they were actually going to have the main floor. I know that was a big deal at one point. They got that done. Once you have and you establish a community center for the seniors in the complex, you're able to actually establish, as Manny had mentioned, life center programs, of bringing these things in. There's a lot of different programs that we can attract once we have a facility like that for the places for them to actually have educational programs, things along those lines. The free tuition at Union County College, things like that. These are very positive programs for people. I'd love to see if